The car door closed with that flat, institutional thud. The sound of a decision being made for me. For the 10th time in 10 years. Except this time, the decision was called freedom. It didn't feel like freedom. It felt like being pushed out of an airlock. I was 19. On my lap, a cardboard box held everything I owned. And a thick manila envelope that weighed more than the box. The engine started. St. Maron's home shrank in the side mirror. Then I heard it, a small sound from the back seat. Fabric moving, a breath held too long. I turned around. The blanket on the floor moved. Wesley, my 12-year-old brother, peeked out. His dark eyes wide. Please don't send me back, Addie. If you leave, I'll die in that place. My heart stopped. I looked at the social worker in the rearview mirror. Mirabelle Hollis, silver-streaked hair, eyes that always seemed to be seeing something just past your shoulder. She had already stopped the car. She looked at me for a long moment. Then, quietly, she said something I would spend the rest of my life trying to understand. I didn't see anything, Adeline. The choice is yours. And just like that, everything changed. I stared at Mirabelle in the mirror, because a social worker doesn't say that. A social worker calls the home. A social worker files a report. A social worker follows the rules because a child's life depends on it. A social worker doesn't just say the choice is yours. Unless she wanted me to make it. I turned back to Wesley. Small, skinny, hair too long, shoes too big, wearing the same donated coat he'd had for 2 winters. Looking at me like I was the sun. Wesley, I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have money. I don't have a plan. I don't care. You'll be hungry sometimes. I've been hungry before. You might not go to school for a while. I hate school. I laughed. I didn't mean to. It just came out. Broken. He climbed over the seat and sat next to me. His small hand found mine and squeezed. Hard. I've got you, he whispered, which was funny, because that was supposed to be my line. Mirabelle started the engine, pulled back onto the highway, like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just broken a dozen laws by pretending not to see a 12-year-old boy. Where are we going? Wesley asked. I pulled the manila envelope out of my box. To meet a lawyer. About an inheritance. Wesley's eyes went wide. Like treasure? I don't know yet. But maybe treasure though, right? I ruffled his hair. Maybe treasure. He grinned. A real grin. The kind I hadn't seen in years. Please, I thought. Please let it be something. Please let it be anything. Because I had no idea how I was going to keep this promise. The lawyer's office was downtown. An old marble building that smelled like floor polish and paperwork. The name on the frosted glass read, Redgrave and Associates. There were no associates. Just Elias Redgrave. Old. Not old like your uncle. Old like a mountain. Old like a book. Tall and stooped. Face carved out of granite. Pale gray eyes that had seen too much and forgotten none of it. His hands trembled slightly when he lifted his coffee cup. But when he looked at me, I felt something strange. Recognition. Like he had been waiting for me for a very long time. Adeline Thorne, he said, his voice low and gravelly. And this must be Wesley. Wesley waved shyly. Mirabelle had brought us up in the elevator, but hadn't come in. She had squeezed my shoulder at the door and said, I'll be downstairs. Take your time. Take your time. Another thing social workers didn't say. I was your grandfather's attorney, Elias said. And his friend. I stared at him, because this was the first time in my entire life anyone had told me I had a grandfather. His name was Silas Thorne. He passed away 2 years ago, but he made arrangements for you long before that. Upon your 19th birthday, you inherit his estate. You are also, by his wishes, to be considered guardian of Wesley. He paused, glanced at me over his glasses, which, given the circumstances, is convenient. I felt my face flush. He knew. Of course he knew. Or maybe he had known all along. His estate consists of a single piece of land, Elias said. He slid a folder across the desk. 400 acres in Clarion County. It's been in your family for 4 generations. 400 acres. The number felt like a foreign language. I had spent my life measuring space in bunk beds and cafeteria tables. A little fire lit up in my chest. Then Elias cleared his throat. There are complications. Of course there were. The land is undeveloped. There is a small structure on the property. A cabin. Very old. Very rustic. Rustic. I could translate that. Rustic meant falling apart. And there are back taxes. Approximately $18,000. If not paid, within 90 days the land will go to auction. The little fire sputtered out. I laughed. Broken. The kind of laugh you make when the joke is on you and you finally get it. I had $47 in my wallet. However, Elias said, "There is an offer." He slid another paper across. A development company called Ironhold Holdings has been trying to acquire the surrounding parcels for years. They've made an offer. It would clear the tax debt and leave you with $20,000 in starting capital. $20,000. To some people, pocket change. To me, more money than I had ever imagined. Enough for an apartment. Enough to get Wesley into a real school. Enough to buy him shoes that fit. I looked at Wesley, watching the papers with wide, serious eyes. He didn't understand any of it. He just knew his big sister was making a decision. The sensible decision. Any adult would take the money. But then Elias did something strange. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small object. Set it on the polished wood. An old brass key. Tarnished with age. Attached to a leather cord. Your grandfather left specific instructions. He wanted you to see the land before you decided. I picked it up. Heavier than it looked. Why? It's a piece of dirt with a falling down cabin. What's there to see? Elias didn't answer right away. He took off his glasses, polished them slowly, put them back on. Then he looked at me, really looked, in a way that made me feel like I was the only person in the world. Adeline, I have been a lawyer for 46 years. I have handled hundreds of estates. I have never met a man like your grandfather. He was not the kind of man who asked for anything without a reason. He wanted you to see the land. He paused. So please, see it. I closed my hand around the key. We'll see the land. Elias exhaled. A long, slow breath, like he had been holding it for 2 years. And then he did the strangest thing of all. He reached across the desk and gently touched the top of my hand. Welcome home, Adeline. The bus ride was 6 hours long. The world changed through the smudged window. City, suburbs, farmland, hills, forest. The trees got taller. The road got narrower. The sky got bigger. Wesley slept curled against my side, his breath warm and slow. I stayed awake. Someone had to. I pulled the manila envelope out. At the bottom, I found an old photograph. 2 people stood in front of a small wooden cabin. A young man, a young woman. They were laughing. The woman's hair was long and dark. The man had his arm around her shoulders. They looked wildly, ridiculously in love. My parents. I knew it in my bones, the way you know things you were never taught. I flipped the photo over. In careful handwriting, 3 words. Home. Summer 1998. Home. I stared at the word for a long time. Because I had never called anywhere home in my whole life. Wesley stirred against my shoulder. Are we there yet? Not yet, buddy. Are they nice? The place we're going? I looked at the photograph. I think so, I whispered. I think maybe they are. The bus hissed to a stop in Pine Ridge. A gravel patch on the side of a 2-lane road. A rusted sign. POP 342. A gas station with a hand-painted sign that read Bramwell's Fuel and Feed. The air when we stepped off was different. Pine needles. Damp earth. Distance. An old red Ford pickup was parked by the gas pumps. Rusty. Older than me by a lot. A man leaned against it. Maybe 70. Maybe 80. Face tanned and creased like old leather. Faded blue baseball cap. Flannel shirt. Jeans washed 1,000 times. He watched us walk toward him. You the Thorne kids? I nodded. I'm Addie. This is Wesley. He looked at us for a long moment. Something moved behind his weathered eyes. Recognition. Or maybe just the wind. Otis Bramwell. Lawyer said you'd need a ride. He nodded toward the truck bed. Throw your stuff in. The truck rumbled to life like a wounded animal. He didn't say anything for a while. Just drove and watched the road. Wesley pressed his face against the window. Then, without looking at me, Otis said, "You know what you're getting into, girl?" "Not really," he grunted. "Heard a developer's been sniffing around the Thorne place. They made an offer. You gonna take it?" I hesitated. "I don't know yet." The pavement ended. We turned onto a dirt road that wound up into the hills. The truck bounced over ruts and stones. "You want my advice?" "Not really," he laughed. Short, dry. "Fair enough." But he said it anyway. "Sell it. Take the money. Get out of here. That land ain't for kids like you." "Why not?" "Because there's a curse on it." Wesley stiffened next to me. "Not a real curse," I said quickly. "Right, Mr. Bramwell?" Otis was quiet for a moment. "Depends on what you mean by real." He rounded a bend, pulled to a stop. "This is as far as I can take you." Paths washed out ahead. He handed me our box and our bags. Then he reached into the glove compartment. Pulled out a small object. A whistle. Bright orange. On a string. You blow it real hard. Sound carries a long way in these woods. Anything goes wrong. You blow it. My place is a mile east. I stared at the whistle, because a stranger, who had just told me to sell my land, was also giving me a way to call for help. "Thank you." He nodded once. "Good luck to you, Thorne girl." He drove away. The dust settled slowly. Wesley slipped his hand into mine. "Addie, I don't think that man was scared of the land." "What do you think he was scared of?" "I think he was scared for us." The path was less a path and more a memory of a path. Faint. Overgrown. Thorns caught at our clothes. Branches whipped at our faces. I was sweating. The cardboard box dug into my shoulder. Half a mile felt like 10. Until the trees thinned, and we stepped into a clearing. And there it was. The Thorne place. Our inheritance. Our home. It was a shack. Small. Sagging. Weathered gray wood. Roof that dipped like a tired old horse's back. One window boarded up. Door hanging on a single rusted hinge. Stone chimney covered in moss, leaning like it might fall. That was everything. I set the box down. Slowly. Because if I dropped it, I would fall too. I couldn't look at Wesley. Because I had promised him a castle, and brought him to a ruin. Wait for it. Wait for him to cry. Wait for him to say, "I want to go home." But Wesley didn't cry. He walked slowly toward the shack, his footsteps silent on the pine needles. He reached out and touched the rough, weathered wood, very still. And then he said something that stopped my heart. "Addie, I think I've been here before." I stared at him. "What?" "I've been here." His voice was strange, distant. "I know this place. Wesley, you couldn't have been here. You were two when, but I have." He turned to look at me. The smell, the wood, the way the trees sound when the wind blows. "I know it." I walked over slowly. "Buddy, you couldn't remember something from when you were two." "But I do." He pressed his hand flat against the wall. Closed his eyes. "There was a woman. She sang to me, right here, in this doorway. She had long dark hair." I couldn't move, because I had just seen a photograph of a woman with long dark hair, standing in front of this exact cabin. 26 years ago. Our mother. I pulled the envelope out with shaking hands. Found the photograph. Held it out. "Wesley, do you know these people?" He looked. For a long moment he didn't say anything. Then his eyes filled with tears. "That's her. That's the singing lady. That's Mom. And that's Dad." His small hand touched the photograph gently, like it was holy. "I remember her voice," he whispered. And then he cried. silently, in front of a falling down shack in the middle of the woods. My little brother cried for a mother he had been told he never knew. I dropped to my knees and pulled him into my arms. I didn't say anything, because there wasn't anything to say. But in the back of my mind, a sharp thought was forming. Somebody had lied to us. Somebody had known where our mother had lived, where our family came from, and somebody had made sure we never knew. Until now, we spent the afternoon exploring. Inside the shack was one small room, surprisingly dry. It smelled of dust, and old wood, and something faintly sweet, like dried herbs. A crude wooden table, a single chair, a rusted wood stove, a pile of old blankets against the far wall. That was all. Except, the blankets were old but folded. The table was clean of dust. The floor had been swept. Not recently, but not decades ago either. Somebody had been here. I didn't say anything to Wesley. He was already fragile from the photograph. While he explored the outside, chasing a butterfly and picking wildflowers, I ran my hands over the walls, tapped floorboards, checked corners. I found nothing, just an old shack. The sun sank low. Shadows grew long, air cooled. Wesley came inside carrying wildflowers. I picked these for you, for our new house. I took them, put them in an empty tin can. Thank you, buddy. I made us a dinner of granola bars. We ate sitting on the floor. Wesley yawned. I need to pee. There's no bathroom. You'll have to go outside. Come with me. You're 12. I know, but I don't know the trees yet. I sighed, grabbed the hand crank flashlight, cranked until it sputtered to life. Come on. Behind the shack was wilder, more overgrown. A small rocky outcrop rose out of the ground, covered in moss. I pointed to a bush. Behind that, he gave me the flashlight. Hold this. Close your eyes. I closed my eyes. I heard him moving, then a yelp. Wesley. I tripped. You okay? Yeah, but, Addie, come look at this. I opened my eyes. He was standing next to the outcrop, pointing at the ground. Under a tangle of vines was a stone. Flat, gray, size of a large dinner platter, perfectly flat on top, almost too flat. I brushed the leaves away. The stone was set into the ground carefully. Deliberately, it didn't match the other rocks. It looked like it had been placed there, by hand. Wesley knelt down. Addie, it has a hole in it. He was right, in the very center, worn almost invisible. A small round hole, size of a nickel. My heart started to beat faster. I dug my fingers around the edge. It didn't budge. Something clicked in my memory. I reached into my pocket. The brass key. I looked at it. I looked at the hole. The size matched. No, I whispered. Wesley looked up. What? This can't be. But my hand was already moving. My fingers already brushing dirt out of the hole. I was already sliding the key in. To fit. Perfectly. I turned it. A soft click. Deep beneath the ground. Metal on metal. A mechanism releasing. Then a low hum. The stone shifted. Just a fraction of an inch. But it shifted. Wesley grabbed my arm. What's happening? I pressed my hands against the edge and pushed. It moved. Slowly. The stone lifted upward on some hidden counterweight. And underneath was another door. Heavy steel. Set flush in a bed of concrete. Painted the color of rock. Camouflaged so perfectly no one walking through this clearing would ever notice. Keyhole. And a small recessed circle. Size of a coin. I couldn't move. Because my grandfather hadn't just left me a piece of land. He had left me a secret. He had planned every step. Wesley coming out here to pee. The stone. The trip. Me having the key. He had waited for us. For 10 years. From beyond the grave. Wesley was breathing fast. Addie, what's down there? I reached back into my pocket. Found the second key. A modern silver one. On a small metal disc. It had been in a small envelope inside the folder. Elias had said, "You will know when." I slid the silver key in, turned. A heavy clunk echoed from within the ground. I pressed the metal disc into the recessed circle. A low hum, a hiss of hydraulics. The massive steel door began to rise. Opened like a clamshell, revealing a set of steep concrete stairs, descending into absolute darkness. A wave of cold, stale air, concrete, earth, and something else, something faintly clean, like ozone. Wesley's small hand slipped into mine, squeezed hard. Addie, Grandpa's down there, isn't he? I looked into the darkness. I thought about a lawyer who had said, "Welcome home," a social worker who had said, "I didn't see anything," an old man in a pickup truck who had said, "You got his eyes," about a whole life falling apart under my feet. I don't know, buddy, but I think he wanted us to find out. I cranked the flashlight until it gave a weak, steady beam. I took one step down, then another. Wesley followed, his small footsteps echoing on the concrete. The stairs kept going. Straight down, into the belly of the earth. Behind us, the last light of day faded from the sky. Ahead of us was only darkness, and whatever my grandfather had spent his life protecting. I gripped Wesley's hand tighter. We descended together, into the unknown, into the truth, into the home we never knew we had. The stairs went down farther than they had any right to. I counted them, 30, 40, 50. The flashlight beam bounced weakly against smooth concrete. The air got colder. The silence got heavier. Wesley's hand was ice cold. "Addie, how deep does it go?" "I don't know. What if it's a tomb?" "It's not a tomb, buddy." "But what if?" "Wesley." He stopped talking, because I couldn't handle him being scared. Not when I was terrified myself and trying so hard not to show it. We reached the bottom, a small concrete chamber, 6 feet by 6, another steel door in front of us. No keyhole, just a single large red button set into the wall. A button, just one. Every horror movie I had ever seen flashed through my mind at once. I pressed it, because what else was I going to do? For a moment, nothing. Then a low hum, a soft mechanical whir, a series of clicks, and the whole chamber flooded with a steady, warm, fluorescent glow. The lights came on, which meant there was power. Real, functioning, humming electrical power. The steel door slid silently sideways into the wall, and I stopped breathing, because what lay beyond wasn't a tomb. It was a home. A long hallway stretched out, painted a soft cream color. Warm, recessed lighting. A narrow rug down the center. Air cool but moving. I could hear the whisper of ventilation somewhere far away. It smelled clean. It smelled lived in. It smelled like someone had walked out of here yesterday. Wesley made a small sound. "Addie, this is..." "I know." We stepped inside. The door slid shut behind us. I flinched, turned, saw another red button on the inside. Okay, so we weren't trapped. Good. I told myself that was good. The first door opened into a kitchen. Small, efficient. A stove, refrigerator, cupboards. I opened one. Cans of soup. Bags of rice. Freeze-dried meals. Everything organized. Everything labeled. Everything covered in a thin, quiet layer of dust. The second door was a bathroom, with a shower. A real shower. I turned the faucet. Water. Cold at first, then warm. I stared at running water like I had never seen water before in my life. The third door was a bedroom. 2 neatly made single beds. Fresh sheets under plastic covers. A small dresser. A shelf with books meant for children. Adventure stories. Nancy Drew mysteries. Wesley stopped in the doorway. "Addie, there's 2 beds." I turned. He knew. He knew there would be 2 of us. Something twisted in my chest, because a man I had never met had made a bed for me. Somewhere, somewhen, he had sat down and thought about me and my little brother and made a place for us. And we had never known. 10 years thinking nobody wanted us. I closed the door softly. I couldn't look anymore. At the end of the hallway was the largest room. A combined living room and study, leather couch, worn rug, a wall of bookshelves, books on cryptography, books on birds, a whole shelf just on birds. At the far end, a large wooden desk. On the desk, a vintage cassette tape recorder, a neat stack of tapes, a thick leather-bound journal. I walked toward it slowly, my footsteps silent. The tape on top was labeled in careful block handwriting. For Adeline and Wesley, play this first. I picked it up. My hands shook, so badly I almost dropped it. Wesley came up beside me, took my other hand. I put the tape in, sat down slowly on the couch. Wesley curled up next to me, pulled his knees to his chest, made himself small. I pressed play. The tape hissed, popped, and then a voice filled the room. A man's voice, low, gentle, weary. Adeline, Wesley, if you are hearing this, then I am gone, and you have found your way home. Home. The word hit me like a physical blow. My name is Silas Thorne. I am your grandfather. Wesley pressed his face into my shoulder. I know you have questions. I know you have lived your whole lives believing I abandoned you, believing your family did not want you. A pause. That was a lie. It was a lie I was forced to build, and it is the greatest regret of my life. The tape hissed. He took a breath. I did not work in insurance. That is what the records say. But it was not true. For 31 years, I worked for a small, quiet branch of the government. I was a cryptographer. My job was to find patterns in noise. Most of it was nothing, bureaucratic static. But in the summer of 1998, I found something else. I felt Wesley stiffen. 1998. The year on the back of the photograph. Home. Summer 1998. I found a signal, a pattern hidden in a stream of legitimate transactions. When I ran it through my systems, it resolved into something else entirely. A domestic conspiracy. A ring of very powerful men, titans of finance and industry, using a protected government network to orchestrate a massive fraud, manipulating markets, bankrupting rivals, buying senators, ruining lives, all for their own enrichment. They were untouchable, a shadow government answerable to no one. And at the center of the ring was a man named Corbin Vance. My blood turned cold. Ironhold Holdings, the developer, the offer. Corbin Vance, Silas said. His voice cracked on the name. Corbin Vance was my best friend. The tape hissed for a long moment. We met at university in 1970. We were both scholarship boys, both from nothing, both a little too smart for our own good. We joined the agency together. We worked side by side for 20 years. He stood next to me at my wedding. He held your father when your father was a baby. And when I found the signal, when I saw what he had become, I did the most foolish thing I have ever done in my life. I called him. I told him what I had found. I asked him what to do. Another long silence. He told me to bring the evidence to his house, that we would take it to the authorities together. I believed him. 3 days later, on their way to visit me, your parents were killed in a highway accident outside of Millbrook. I made a sound. I didn't mean to. Wesley cried silently against my shoulder. The police said mechanical failure, brake lines, a tragic accident. I knew better. Vance had done it, or had ordered it done. He had killed my son. He had killed my daughter-in-law. He had killed the two people I loved most in the world, to send me a message, to show me what would happen if I did not stop looking. And the message was clear. If I did not disappear, if I did not destroy the evidence, he would come for you next. He would come for you and Wesley. I gripped the arm of the couch until my knuckles turned white. You were 9, Adeline. Wesley was 2. You had just lost your parents. You were the last 2 Thorns left. And a man I had once called my brother had made it clear he would burn the last 2 Thorns to the ground if I did not surrender. So I made a decision, the hardest of my life. I could not go to the police, because Vance's people were inside the police. I could not go to my superiors, because Vance had a superior in every agency that mattered. I could not run, because they would find you. So I did the only thing left. I disappeared. I used every trick, every skill, every contact I had built. I staged a boating accident. I was declared legally dead. Silas Thorne ceased to exist. And I came here, to this land that had belonged to my family for 4 generations. And I built this place. Not overnight, over years, bit by bit, a sanctuary, a fortress, an armory. And I let you go into the system. The voice broke. That was the cruelest part. I did it on purpose. Anonymous. Lost in the bureaucracy. The one place they would never look for a thorn. And I have thought about you every day. Every single day. For 10 years. I am so sorry, my children. For the nights you cried in strange beds. For the birthdays no one remembered. For growing up believing that your family did not want you. We wanted you. God, we wanted you. Every second of every day. The tape hissed. I built this place as a weapon. The proof of what Vance did is here. 20 years of his shadow ledger. Every account. Every crime. Every soul he crushed. I could not use it myself. The moment I surfaced, they would kill me. And more importantly, they would kill you. But now I am gone. And you are here. And the choice is yours. There is money in the shed. Cash. Clean. Untraceable. Enough for a fresh start anywhere. You can walk away. Sell this land. Take his money and disappear. That is one path. There is another. But it is not one I can ask you to take. You are all I have left. If you do choose to fight, if you choose to finish what I started, then everything you need is in the room at the north end of the hall. The silver key. The one you already used. He gave a small, tired laugh. Wesley, if you are listening, I hope you are as smart as your father was at your age. I hope you are asking questions. That was always my gift, and it will be yours. Adeline, my brave girl, you have carried so much. I know. I have watched from a great distance. I have followed every school, every placement, every year. I have not been able to reach for you, but I have never, ever stopped loving you. You are a thorn, and thorns do not run. But if you do this time, if this is finally too much, that is all right too. The choice is yours, my darling girl. It has always been yours. I love you both, more than you will ever know. Goodbye. The tape clicked off. The room was silent. Except for the soft hum of the ventilation. Except for my ragged breathing. Except for Wesley crying quietly into my shirt. I stared at the tape recorder. For a long time I couldn't move, because a whole life was falling apart around me. Every story I had ever been told about myself. Every belief I had built to survive. Our parents had not died in an accident. They had been murdered. Our grandfather had not been a stranger. He had been a ghost. And a man named Corbin Vance was still out there. I stood up finally. Walked out of the room. Down the hallway. Past the bedroom with the 2 beds. Past the kitchen. Up the concrete stairs. Out into the clearing. The sun was almost gone. Purple and gold. A single star above the treeline. And I fell to my knees in the pine needles. And I let 10 years of grief pour out of me. I don't know how long I was there, but at some point I felt a small hand on my back. Wesley had followed me. He knelt down. He didn't try to hug me. He just took an old cloth handkerchief out of his pocket and pressed it into my hand. Where did you get this? On the desk. It has letters on it. In the corner, embroidered in faded blue thread, 3 initials. A.T. Silas Edward Thorne. I pressed the handkerchief to my face. Wesley put his small arm around my shoulders. Don't cry, Addie. We have each other. And that was the thing that finally broke me open. Because for the first time in 10 years, someone was taking care of me instead of the other way around. And he was 12 years old. We slept in the underground bedroom. Wesley took the top bunk. He had never had a top bunk before. He crawled up like it was a mountain, grinned down at me. There's a reading light. Look. He fell asleep in 4 minutes. I lay awake for hours, staring at the concrete ceiling, thinking about a man named Corbin Vance who was still alive, who was still out there, who had made an offer on this land, who was, right now, waiting for my answer. I woke to the smell of coffee, which was impossible, because I hadn't made coffee. I sat up, so fast I hit my head on the top bunk. Wesley was in the kitchen, wearing one of Silas's old flannel shirts that reached his knees, standing on a chair, pouring coffee out of an old percolator. He grinned. There's directions taped to the machine. Wesley, I made you toast too, but there's no bread, so it's a granola bar. You are the strangest kid I have ever met. He handed me the coffee. Terrible, bitter, grounds floating in it. The best cup of coffee I ever had. Okay, today, we call the lawyer, and we go into the north room. Wesley looked at me carefully, his face suddenly older than 12. Addie, are we going to fight the bad man? I set down the coffee. I don't know yet. I don't know if we can. But if we can, are we going to? I thought about our mother, singing in a doorway. Yeah, I think we are. The door at the north end was different. Reinforced steel. High security lock. The silver key slid in smoothly. I pushed it open. Wesley made a small sound behind me. The room was small, climate-controlled, ice-cold. One wall was lined with shelves, dozens of sealed fireproof cases, each labeled with a date, each with a name. Another wall was covered in cork, floor-to-ceiling cork. A map of people, photographs, news clippings, handwritten notes, all connected by red string. At the center, a single photograph. A man in a gray suit, silver hair, sharp jaw, cold blue eyes, Corbin Vance. Around him, other names, other faces, a senator, a hedge fund manager, a judge, a lobbyist, a former deputy director, all connected, all tied to Vance by a thin red thread. But the third wall was the one that made me stop. The third wall was stacked floor to ceiling with cash. Not bundles, bricks. Shrink-wrapped bricks of $100 bills. So much my brain could not calculate. I had never seen anything like it. Not in a movie. Not in a dream. Wesley walked toward it. Reached out. Stopped. Addie, is that real? I think so. We're rich. It's not that simple. Because on the metal table in the center, next to a laptop and an external hard drive, a folded piece of paper. The money is his weapon. Now it can be yours. Use it to hire the best. Do not trust anyone you have not vetted yourself. Vance has eyes everywhere. The hard drive is everything. 20 years of his shadow ledger. Every account. Every crime. Every soul he has crushed. If you take the deal, give him none of this. Take the money in the shed. Burn this room to ash. He will never know it existed. If you fight, start here. I picked up the satellite phone from a shielded case. Walked out. Up the stairs. Out into morning air. Up to the rocky outcrop where the phone might get signal. I dialed Elias. He answered on the second ring. His voice was tight, careful, like he had been waiting. Elias, it's Addie. Have you seen it? Yes. All of it. All of it. He exhaled slowly. I need you to come. In person. Adeline, are you absolutely sure? About what? Once I know. Once you show me. You cannot unshow me. I looked out over the trees. I'm sure. I'll be there tomorrow morning. Do not tell anyone else. Do not leave the property. Okay. Adeline. Yes? You are your grandfather's granddaughter. He hung up. Elias arrived at noon the next day. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept. His suit was rumpled, his gray eyes red-rimmed. I led him to the hidden door, keyed it open, let him go first down the stairs. I watched his face as the lights came on, as the door slid open, the hallway, the kitchen, the bedroom. He didn't say a word. I led him to the north room, opened the door. He stepped inside, stopped, saw the cork wall, saw the photograph of Vance, saw the hard drive, saw the money, and then something happened I did not expect. Elias Redgrave, old lawyer, man of granite. He sat down on the small metal chair, put his face in his hands, and wept. His shoulders shook. His breath came in ragged gasps. Wesley and I stood in the doorway. I did not know what to do, because whatever this room was to me, it was something else entirely to him. After a long moment, he lifted his head. "Adeline, come sit." I sat. Wesley sat next to me. Very quietly, Elias took off his glasses, wiped his eyes. My wife. Her name was Eleanor. I waited. She was an investigative journalist. Very good. Very stubborn. Very much like your grandfather. He gave a small, painful smile. In 1996, 2 years before your grandfather found his signal, Eleanor was working on a story about a small hedge fund moving money in ways that made no sense. She thought it was fraud. She thought she could prove it. He paused. She was almost right. It was fraud, but it was much bigger than she knew. His voice was very quiet now. She died in a fire, in our apartment, on a Tuesday afternoon. The fire marshal ruled it electrical. Faulty wiring. Old building. He looked at me. I did not believe it. I understood. Suddenly I understood everything. "You knew," I whispered. "You knew who did it." I suspected. I could not prove. And I had 2 young children to raise. So I put it away. I raised my sons. I built my practice. And I waited. He looked at the photograph of Vance. Silas came to me in 1999. He walked into my office and asked me to draft a will. He told me nothing else. But something in his eyes. His voice broke. Something in his eyes told me. He knew what had happened to Eleanor. He knew who had done it. And he was going to make them pay. He looked at me. I have waited 22 years, Adeline. 22 years for someone to walk into this room and open that hard drive. He reached across the table and took my hand. Cold. Trembling. Old. "You are here now." I just held his hand. And Wesley climbed into my lap. And the 3 of us sat there, in a cold room, deep underground, in the presence of a wall of names, a wall of money, and the ghost of a woman named Eleanor. The war had already started. We were just the ones who were going to finish it. The next month passed in a blur. Elias returned to the city with the hard drive. He hired a team using cash we sent with him. A retired FBI financial crimes investigator named Delia Marsh, and a young cybersecurity expert named Rowan Kite. We stayed at the bunker, on his orders. Otis Bramwell became our lifeline. Twice a week, boxes at the end of the dirt path. Groceries, batteries, first aid. Wesley's asthma inhalers filled at a pharmacy 3 towns, over under a false name. Otis never asked questions. He just left the boxes and drove away. Life underground was strange. I made rules to keep us sane. Up at 7. Chores in the mornings. I patched the shed roof. Cleared brush. Wesley helped me plant a garden in the clearing. In the afternoons, I homeschooled him. I found Silas's old textbooks. Wesley absorbed everything. Smarter than I had realized. In the evenings, we watched old movies on the small television. Silas had a huge collection. Black and white films. Westerns. Wesley started narrating his life like a detective. The girl walked into my office. She had rain on her coat and trouble in her eyes. "Wesley, I'm making pasta." The dame was making pasta, but the pasta was hiding something. I laughed until my stomach hurt. I hadn't laughed like that in 10 years. But the war was always there. Every few days the satellite phone rang. Elias in coded language. The evidence was airtight. Delia was tracing the money. Rowan was decrypting deeper files. Ironhold Holdings had increased their offer. First to 50,000. Then 200,000. Then 2 million. $2 million for land they had originally offered $18,000 for. Which meant they were desperate. Which meant they knew or suspected that something was here. Elias asked me each time. Each time I said no. But the third time I hesitated. Because $2 million would set Wesley up for life. I sat in the study that night, long after Wesley had gone to bed. Wesley came out of the bedroom in his pajamas. I can't sleep. Come here. He curled up next to me. You're thinking about the money. How did you know? Your face gets a certain way. What way? Like when the social worker used to visit. Like you were trying to make yourself smaller. I looked at him. Addie, we lived 10 years with no money. And we were fine. We weren't fine, buddy. We were alive. That's not the same. But we were together. Sort of. He thought about it. Money would be nice. I want to try pizza from a real restaurant. And I want new shoes. Okay. But if we take it. Grandpa. All this. It was for nothing. I felt my throat tighten. And the bad man. He still wins. Yeah, he does. So we can't take it, right? I pulled him closer. Right, buddy? We can't. He nodded. Fell asleep against my shoulder in 3 minutes. I called Elias in the morning. Tell them no. And tell them we are filing. Adeline, once we file, they will come. I know. There is still time to walk away. No, there isn't. There never was. I will file this afternoon. He hung up. 2 days later, we started hearing the helicopters. Low. Circling. Their thumping blades echoing through the trees. Never landing. Just circling. Watching. Wesley became fascinated. Went to the edge of the clearing, with binoculars I had bought at Otis's insistence. Took notes in a small notebook. That one's back. Blue stripe. 3rd time this week. I told him to stay away from the edge until the day the truck showed up. A maintenance truck. White. Logo that read Pine Ridge County Utilities. 2 men in coveralls got out. Started walking down the path with clipboards, like they were inspecting power lines. Except we didn't have power lines to our property. I ran back to the bunker, grabbed Wesley, pushed him inside. I called Otis. Otis, there's a utilities truck at the end of my path. Long pause. Girl. Pine Ridge County Utilities went out of business 6 years ago. I closed my eyes. They're not real. Stay in the bunker. Lock everything. Don't come out for anyone but Elias. I'm calling him now. He hung up. I stood at the top of the stairs, listening. The steel door was closed above me. I heard footsteps in the clearing. I heard voices, muffled. I heard one say clearly, "Nothing here, just an old cabin, rotting." The other, "Keep looking, there has to be something." I stood frozen, my hand on the button that would open the door above me, or seal it forever. I did not press it. I waited. After a long time, the footsteps faded. An engine started in the distance. They were gone. For now. I climbed down, sealed the inner door. Wesley was in the kitchen, still stirring a can of soup. His face pale but calm. Are they gone? Yeah, buddy. Are they coming back? I looked at my little brother. I could not lie to him. Yes, I think they are. He nodded slowly. Then we should get ready. Ready for what? He looked at me. For the fight, Addie. Grandpa said we had to be ready for the fight. That night, after Wesley slept, I climbed back up alone. Walked to the top of the ridge, where the sky was so big it made your chest ache. I looked out over the dark valley. Somewhere out there, Corbin Vance was waking up in a warm bed, surrounded by security. He had killed my parents. He had ruined my grandfather. He had stolen my childhood. He had tried to buy my silence. I had told him no. Now he was coming for me. I thought I would be afraid. But I wasn't. I whispered into the darkness. Grandpa, I'm not scared anymore. The wind moved through the trees. Somewhere very far away, an owl called back. The alarm went off at 3:17 in the morning. A high, sharp electronic scream. I sat straight up. heart slamming. Wesley was already awake in the top bunk, his face pale in the red emergency light. Addie, stay here. Addie, what is it? Wesley, stay here. I grabbed the flashlight, the satellite phone, ran into the hallway. The alarm was coming from the north room, the vault. Someone was in it. Someone was in my grandfather's vault. I ran, barefoot, in my pajamas, my mind screaming, because nobody had the code except Elias. Nobody knew about the vault except our team. Delia, Elias, Rowan. The name hit me like ice water, because Rowan had been in the bunker last week. Rowan had been alone in the study for 20 minutes, while I made lunch. Rowan had asked so casually where I kept the backup drives. I skidded to a stop outside the vault. The door was open, lock overridden. A man inside, bent over the metal table, his back to me, working fast. A small black case open next to him. Wires. A laptop. He was copying something. He turned when he heard me. Rowan Kite, 28 years old. Brilliant, quiet, polite. Had shaken my hand 3 weeks ago and told me it was an honor. His eyes were flat, empty, like a shark's eyes. Adeline, go back to your room. Get out of my grandfather's house. It's not a request. Neither is mine. He straightened up, slowly, 6'2" maybe. I was 5'4" in shoes, and I wasn't wearing shoes. He reached into his jacket. Not a gun. The hard drive. My grandfather's hard drive. He held it up. Small cold smile. This is what I came for. You cannot stop me. I stared at him. Every muscle wanted to run at him, tackle him, do anything to keep that drive here. But I was 19, barefoot, terrified, and behind me, Wesley was alone. How much did he pay you? He tilted his head. Enough. He killed my parents. He also paid off my student loans, and made sure my sister's medical care continues. So forgive me if I am not particularly moved by your family tragedy. He's a monster. He's an employer. He stepped toward me. I stepped back. And then, behind me, a small voice. Addie, duck. I dropped. Instinct. I dropped before I thought. Something small and hard flew over my head, struck Rowan in the chest, bounced off, clattered to the floor. A can of soup. Wesley had thrown a can of soup at him. Rowan looked at the can, looked at Wesley in the doorway, looked at me on the floor. He laughed, once, a short, disbelieving laugh. You have got to be kidding me. Wesley was standing there in his pajamas, barefoot, holding another can. Wesley, get back. No. Wesley. I said no, Addie. He threw the second can. Rowan blocked it. But he was distracted, just for a second, which was all I needed, because the vault had one thing Rowan didn't know about, because my grandfather had thought of everything. On the wall right next to the door, a small red switch, labeled Emergency Lockdown. Wesley had shown it to me 2 weeks ago, just goofing around, poking at things. Addie, look, what do you think this does? We had never pressed it. Now, from the floor, my hand reached up and slammed it down. Every steel door in the bunker slammed shut simultaneously, including the door of the vault. With Rowan inside, he lunged. Too late. The heavy steel door crashed down between us, with a sound like a car crash. The lock engaged. Automatic. Absolute. Silence. I lay on the floor, panting, my hand still on the switch. Wesley ran to me, dropped to his knees, threw his arms around me. Addie, are you okay? I'm okay, buddy. He was going to take it. Grandpa's proof. I know. I threw the soup. I saw. It was the only thing I could reach. I laughed. Couldn't help it. I laughed and cried at the same time, holding my little brother in the cold concrete hallway, while a corporate spy pounded silently against a soundproof steel door, because sometimes, the only thing you can throw is a can of soup. And sometimes that is enough. Delia Marsh arrived 40 minutes later. She lived closer than any of us knew. She had insisted from the beginning on being within an hour. In case I had not understood then, I understood now. She came alone. An old dark green Jeep. Hiking boots. Plain black jacket. 63 years old. Silver-haired. Small and wiry. Eyes like a hawk. Once the best financial crimes investigator the FBI ever had. Until the wrong senator's son had gotten in trouble, and she had refused to look the other way. She walked into the bunker like she had been born there. She opened the vault. Rowan was sitting against the wall. Sullen. Silent. She looked at him. For a long moment. Rowan Kite, you disappointed me. He didn't answer. She zip-tied his hands. Walked him up the stairs. Put him in the Jeep. Drove away. I never saw Rowan Kite again. She came back an hour later. Sat down at the kitchen table. I made her coffee. Wesley sat next to her, watching with big serious eyes. He's in federal custody now, being held until we can file the case with the special counsel. He won't be able to warn Vance. Won't people notice he's missing? He's a contractor. Goes off-grid all the time. Nobody will look for him for weeks. She sipped her coffee. But Adeline, listen. I listened. He got in tonight, which means Vance knows something is here. Vance will come, not personally, but soon. He will send men who look like they belong here, who have paperwork, who have excuses. What do we do? She looked at me, then at Wesley. Her hard face softened. We already did it. What? Elias filed at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, under seal, with the special counsel. Federal agents are being dispatched as we speak. Warrants are being drawn. Wait, what? He didn't tell you, because he didn't want you to worry, but the case is filed. I stared at her. So we hold on, for maybe 36 hours, maybe 48, and then it is over. Wesley grabbed my hand under the table. 36 hours. We just had to survive 36 hours. They came at dawn. Not with helicopters. Not with black SUVs. Not with anything that would look suspicious. A white utility van. A fake logo. 2 men in coveralls. Carrying clipboards. Carrying tool bags. Carrying, I would find out later, a small breaching charge. They parked at the end of the dirt path. Started walking down. I saw them from the treeline. I had been up since 3. I had been watching. I ran back to the bunker. Wesley was already in the vault. Delia had insisted yesterday. Rehearsed with him 3 times. Emergency food. Satellite phone. The safest room. I sealed us inside. I sat on the cold floor with Wesley in my lap. We could not see what was happening upstairs. We just had to wait. Wesley pressed his face into my shoulder. Addie. Yeah, buddy. Sing to me. What? Like Mom did. In the doorway. I stared down at him, because I could not remember our mother singing. I had been 9. I had lost too many of those memories. But somewhere, deep, in a place I did not know I still had. There was a song about a river, and a boat, and a small light that would not go out. My mother's voice, faint, faded, but there. I opened my mouth. I sang. I did not know the words at first, but my mouth knew them. My throat knew them. My whole body knew them. 19 years of forgetting fell away. Wesley started to cry. Silently. You sound like her. I don't remember her. You do. You just did. I held him tighter. I kept singing. Above us. Faint. Muffled. A distant crack. Metal on metal. Something being pried open. They were at the door. I sang louder. Wesley pressed his hands over his ears. But he was smiling. Through his tears. Smiling. Mommy. 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 The song filled the vault. Filled the concrete. Filled 20 years of buried memory. Somewhere above us, 2 men were trying to burn their way into my grandfather's home. Somewhere out there, a man named Corbin Vance was still asleep in a warm bed. And down here, a big sister was singing her mother's song to her little brother. And the world could not touch us. I don't know how long they tried, but at some point I stopped hearing them. Silence for a long time. Then, a different sound. A rumble. Distant at first. Then close. Then very close. Then everywhere. Engines. Many engines. Convoy. I stopped singing. Wesley lifted his head. Addie. Shoo. We listened. Voices. Many voices. Boots on gravel. A helicopter overhead. Not circling this time, but landing. And then, very clear, over a loudspeaker. Federal agents. Hands where we can see them. Drop the equipment. I closed my eyes. I did not breathe, because I did not dare hope. Not yet. More shouting. More boots. Men being taken to the ground. Cuffs. Radio chatter. Then, footsteps coming down the stairs. 2 sets. Then more. Then a knock. Sharp. 3 times. On the vault door. Adeline Thorne. This is Federal Agent Mirabelle Hollis. You are safe. Please open the door. I stopped breathing. Because that name, Mirabelle Hollis, my social worker, Addie, why is Miss Mirabelle here? I could not answer. Because my hand was already on the release lever. Because my body was already moving. The vault door hissed open. She was standing in the hallway, Mirabelle Hollis, silver-streaked hair pulled back, wearing a dark blue windbreaker, with 3 yellow letters across the chest. FBI. Not a social worker's clothes, but it was her. Her eyes were wet. Adeline, she whispered. I could not move. Wesley moved. He stepped past me. He walked up to her. He looked up. He said, very quietly, you lied to us. She closed her eyes. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Yes, I did. For a long time. Yes. Why? She knelt down. Almost 60. But she knelt on the cold concrete to be at his eye level. Because I love you. And because I was not allowed to say so. Until now. I felt the whole world tilt. I sat down. Hard. On the floor. Because I understood. 10 years of case workers rotating in and out of my life. Except one. Except her. Except the woman who kept somehow being reassigned to me. Every time I moved homes. Every time I switched counties. I had thought it was coincidence. I had thought I was lucky. Who are you? I whispered. She turned to look at me. Her face crumpled. Adeline, my name is Mirabelle Thorne. The world stopped. I am Silas Thorne's daughter. The world stopped. I am your father's sister. The world stopped. I am your aunt. I could not process the words. I stared at her. Wesley stared at her. The word aunt was a word I had never used in my entire life. A word from other people's vocabularies. You are my aunt. Yes, you have been my aunt. This whole time. Yes, you have been my aunt. In a caseworker's uniform, sitting across from me at a folding table, in a group home cafeteria, asking me about my algebra grade. Yes, for 10 years. Yes, I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her, but I couldn't, because Wesley climbed into her lap, just climbed into her lap, wrapped his skinny arms around her neck, buried his face in her shoulder, like he had known her his whole life, which, in a way, he had. Mirabelle held him, like she was afraid he would disappear if she let go. Her whole body shook. She looked at me over his shoulder. When your father was killed, when my brother died, my father came to me, Silas. He told me everything he had found, everything he was about to do. She swallowed. He said, Mirabelle, I have to disappear. I have to leave the children in the system. But somebody has to watch them. Somebody has to be there. If they need. Her voice broke. He asked me to give up my life, my name, my career, to spend the rest of my life watching over you, from a distance, without ever being allowed to touch you, or hold you, or tell you who I was. She looked down at Wesley, and I said yes. I felt something ancient and heavy break open inside my chest. I trained as a caseworker. I did all the paperwork. I built a whole other life. I lived in a small apartment near whatever group home you were in. I moved when you moved. I requested every reassignment. She reached toward me. I watched you grow up, Adeline. I saw you learn to read. I saw you win a spelling bee when you were 11. I saw you cry the night your first foster placement fell through. I brought you an extra blanket that Christmas Eve when the heat broke. The blue one. I remembered the blanket. I still had it in my box. You gave me that. I gave you that. You brought me chocolate on my birthday, when I was 15. Every year. I thought it was from the home. I know. I couldn't finish, because for 10 years I had believed nobody remembered me. And there had been a woman across the table, with silver-streaked hair, who remembered me every day, who kept a calendar of my birthdays, who cried when I cried, who watched me struggle and could not reach for me, because she loved me too much to risk it. I stood up, slowly, like my legs might give out. I walked over, knelt down. I put my hand on her cheek. Her skin was wet. Aunt Mirabelle. She made a sound. Not a word, just a sound. The sound of a woman who had been holding her breath for a decade finally letting it out. She pulled me into her arms. She pulled me and Wesley both into her arms. And there, on the cold concrete floor of my grandfather's bunker, with federal agents securing the surface and a wall of evidence one room away, I sat in my aunt's arms for the first time in my life. I was 19 years old, and I had never known what an aunt's arms felt like. She smelled like apple pie. Later, I would understand. The pie she had left me, in the diner, weeks ago, when she showed up out of nowhere. Her mother had taught her that recipe. My grandmother, the grandmother I would now finally learn about. The rest happened fast. Corbin Vance was arrested at his estate in Connecticut at 7:14 the following morning, eating breakfast on his terrace. The federal agents did not knock. He was still holding his coffee cup when they cuffed him. The photograph made every news outlet in the country within 24 hours. The senator resigned within a week. The hedge fund manager was arrested at a private airport trying to board a jet. The judge was arrested in his chambers. The lobbyist tried to run. He didn't make it. Ironhold Holdings imploded overnight. The stock crashed. The board dissolved. The special counsel called our case the single largest domestic corruption prosecution in modern American history. They called my grandfather a hero. They called Elias's wife Eleanor a martyr. They gave a very quiet press briefing in which our names were not mentioned. Not once. Because we were minors when the crimes began. Because Elias fought like a lion to keep us out of the papers. We were called only the whistleblower's family. Which is what we were. Which is all we needed to be. The settlement came a year later. Elias called me on a Tuesday morning. His voice calm, careful. Adeline, it is done. The court has ruled. Yeah. You should sit down. I am sitting down. Sit down more. I sat down more. He told me the number. I did not speak for a long time, because the number was so big it did not fit in my head. Elias. Yes. Is this real? It is real. Elias. Yes. I don't want it. He was quiet. I mean, I want some. For Wesley. For school. For the house. For a truck that isn't held together with prayer. That is reasonable. But the rest. I don't want it. What do you want to do with it? I thought for a long moment. I thought about a 9-year-old girl in a cardboard box being driven away from her old life. I thought about a 12-year-old boy hiding in a back seat because the only person he loved was leaving. I thought about the two of us. Alone in a dorm room. Alone in a cafeteria. Alone in every crowd. Alone. When we did not have to be. I want to start a foundation for siblings in the foster system so they don't get separated, so they get placed together. Elias made a small sound, like he was trying not to cry. Adeline, that is the best idea I have ever heard. Really? Really? Will you help me? He laughed. Soft, wet. My dear girl, I will help you build it stone by stone. We named it the Thorne Sibling Foundation. The paperwork was signed on my 20th birthday. Wesley signed too, in careful block letters, right next to mine. Asked if that was legal. Elias winked and said, "It is now." The house on the ridge was finished in the fall. Not a mansion, just a house. 2 stories, wood and stone. Big windows that let in all the sky. A wraparound porch. A stone fireplace big enough to sit in. A kitchen with a big farmhouse table where a lot of people could eat. And the front door, painted bright blue. Wesley had picked the color. He had insisted. He had gone to the hardware store with me and stood in front of the paint chips for 20 minutes. He had picked the exact shade. The color of the door on the small house in the old photograph. The color of the door where our mother had once stood. He had not told me that was why he picked it. He didn't have to. I knew. Aunt Mirabelle moved into a small cottage on a corner of the Thorne land, just a mile down the road. She retired from the bureau, grew a vegetable garden, adopted a small ugly dog she named Cornelius, learned to knit badly. She came for dinner every Sunday. She brought apple pie, always her mother's recipe, my grandmother's recipe, rolled by hand on a wooden board that had belonged to a woman I would never meet, but who had loved me before I was born. Wesley started calling her Aunt Mira after a month. I took longer, but one Sunday, in November, right after Thanksgiving, she was standing at the sink washing dishes, and I was drying them, and the light was coming in through the window at just the right angle. And she looked so much like my father in the photograph. His eyes, his mouth, and I said, softly, almost to myself, "Aunt Mira." She stopped washing, looked at me, eyes filled up. She just nodded, and we kept doing dishes. Otis Bramwell came to the housewarming. He drove up in the old red Ford, wearing his best flannel, carrying a small wrapped package. He handed it to me at the door, wouldn't come inside at first, stood on the porch shifting his weight. "For the house, Thorne girl." I unwrapped it. A small carved wooden bird, painted like a robin, old, very carefully made. "Otis, this is beautiful. Where did you get it?" He didn't answer for a moment. Then he said, rough, quiet, "Your grandpa made that. Gave it to me 30 years ago. When my wife passed. Said sometimes you need something small to hold, when the house is empty." I stared at him. "You knew him. Everybody in Pine Ridge knew Silas Thorne. But you knew him." He looked away, out over the ridge. His eyes far away. "He was my best friend, girl. 50 years. I could not speak. When he faked his death, I was the one who helped him. I drove the boat out. I made sure the story stuck. He needed someone. I was there." He looked at me. "Couldn't tell you before, because you needed to figure out for yourself whether you were the kind of Thorne who could hold this land. And you were. And now I'm telling you, because now you know." His weathered eyes were wet. "Welcome home, Thorne girl." I hugged him, hard. He was stiff at first. Then he hugged me back. He came to Sunday dinner too after that. Every week. He and Aunt Mira and Wesley and I. For people at a farmhouse table. Sometimes Elias joined us, driving out from the city on holidays. We ate apple pie, and we talked. And slowly, very slowly, over months, I learned about my grandfather, my grandmother, my father as a boy, my mother as a bride, the whole family tree that had been kept from me for 10 years. I built it back. One story at a time, one Sunday at a time. Wesley started at Pine Ridge Middle School. He was terrified the first day. He wore a new shirt, new shoes, a backpack with all the pockets he wanted. He almost cried at the school gate. But then a small kid with red hair came up to him and asked if he wanted to see something cool. And Wesley followed him. And I stood in the parking lot with tears streaming down my face while other parents pretended not to notice. He came home that afternoon with a friend named Peter. By the end of the semester he was on the baseball team. By the end of the year he was catching frogs in the creek. and telling me about a girl named Sarah in his math class, who was very smart and had freckles and did not know he existed. He was 12 years old. He was finally just 12. I started law school online. Elias hired me as a paralegal at his firm, gave me my own desk, my own coffee mug, the file cabinet that had once been my grandfather's, brought over from storage. He told me on my first day, "Adeline, your grandfather was the smartest man I ever knew." "Yes, you are smarter than he was. Elias, I am not being kind. I am being accurate." I did not know what to say. So I said, "Thank you," and I meant it. The bunker is still down there. We did not seal it. We cleaned it, fixed it, kept the power running. But we changed it. The vault where the money used to be is now a small library. Shelves of my grandfather's books. A picture of my parents in a wooden frame. The tape recorder still on the desk. Still working, in case I ever want to hear his voice again, which I do, sometimes, on hard nights. The bedroom with the 2 bunks is now a guest room. The kitchen is a photo darkroom for Wesley. He has taken up photography. He has a good eye. He sees things other people don't see. The main entrance is hidden by a small greenhouse we built over it. Roses in the summer. Tomatoes in the fall. You would never know what was underneath. Unless you knew. We know. I was on the porch, sitting in the old rocking chair. The sun was setting over the ridge. Pink and gold. The kind of sky that makes you understand why people believe in God. Wesley came out of the house. He was 13 now, taller, skinnier. His voice had started to crack. He was holding a piece of paper. "Addie." "Yeah, buddy. I made you something." He handed it to me. A drawing. Our porch. Our house. The ridge. The trees. And 4 people standing on the porch. Me, Wesley, Aunt Mira. And behind us, slightly faded, slightly transparent, like a photograph left in the sun too long, an old man, in a flannel shirt, with his hand on Wesley's shoulder. I stared. I did not speak for a long time. Under the drawing, in careful 12-year-old handwriting, Wesley had written 2 words. Our home, not our house. Our home. I looked up. He was watching me, nervous. "Wesley." "Yeah. Come here." He came. I pulled him into my lap. He was too big for it now. His long legs stuck out awkwardly. He complained softly that he was too old for this. But he stayed. We watched the sun set together. The wind moved through the pines. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. I thought about that first night, standing in the clearing, looking at a falling down shack, believing my whole life was over. I thought about a woman named Mirabelle, who had loved me, from a distance for 10 years. I thought about a man named Silas, who had lived alone in a concrete room for a decade, so that his grandchildren could someday sit on a porch and watch the sun go down together. I thought about a woman named Eleanor who had died, so long ago I would never know her face. I thought about an old man named Otis, who had helped a friend disappear and kept his secret for 30 years. I thought about all the people whose sacrifice I would never fully understand. And I thought, home is not what you are given. Home is what you fight for. Home is what you build. Out of the wreckage of the story you were told, into the truth you finally find. And then, slowly, person by person, Sunday dinner by Sunday dinner, blue door by blue door, you make a place where the people you love can find you, where the people who love you can finally sit down and rest. Wesley leaned his head against my shoulder. "Addie." "Yeah, buddy. I love you." I closed my eyes. The sun disappeared behind the ridge. The first star came out over the pines. "I love you too, buddy." And that was all. And that was everything.